Hello, my darlings. Looks like nobody's guessed it so far. Oh, we'll see if we can keep it going. And AJ, if I have missed finishing a novel, I will get to it. Just for you, I promise. Anyway, here we are with Who Goes There, Chapter 2. Blair stirred uneasily, his little bony fingers wriggling under the harsh light. Little brown freckles on his knuckles slid back and forth as the tendons under the skin twitched. He pulled aside a bit of the tarpaulin and looked impatiently at the dark, icebound thing inside. McCready's big body straightened somewhat. He'd ridden the rocky, jarring steam tractor 40 miles that day, pushing on to Big Magnet here. Even his calm will had been pressed by the anxiety to mix again with humans. It was lone and quiet out there in the secondary camp, where the wolf wind howled down from the pole. Wolf wind howling in his sleep, winds droning in the evil, unspeakable face of that monster, leering up as he'd seen it through the clear blue eyes, with a bronze ice axe buried in its skull. The giant meteorologist spoke again. "The problem is them. Blair wants to examine the thing, thaw it out and make microslides of its tissue and so forth. Norris doesn't believe that is safe, and Blair does. Dr. Copper agrees pretty much with Blair. Norris is a physicist, of course, not a biologist. But he makes a point I think we should all hear. Blair has described the microscopic life forms biologists find living, even in this cold and unhospitable place. They freeze every winter and thaw every summer for 3 months and live. The point Norris makes is, they thaw and live again. There must have been microscopic life associated with this creature. There is with every living thing we know, and Norris is afraid that we may unleash a plague, some germ disease unknown to Earth, if we thaw those frozen microscopic things that have been frozen there for 20 million years. Blair admits that such microlife might retain the power of living. Such unorganized things as individual cells can retain life for unknown periods. When solidly frozen, the beast itself is as dead as those frozen mammoths they find in Siberia. Organized, highly developed life forms can't stand that treatment. But microlife could. Norris suggests that we may release some disease form that man, never having met before, will be utterly defenseless against. Blair's answer is that there may be such still living germs, but that Norris has the case reversed. They are utterly non-immune to man, our life chemistry probably. Probably, the little biologist's head lifted in a quick bird-like motion. The halo of gray hair about his bald head ruffled as though angry. "Heh! One look!" "I know," McCready acknowledged. "The thing is not earthly. It does not seem likely that it can have a life chemistry sufficient like ours to make cross-infection remotely possible. I would say there's no danger." McCready looked towards Dr. Copper. The physician shook his head slowly. "None whatever," he asserted confidently. "Man cannot infect or be infected by germs that live in such comparatively close relatives as the snake. And they are, I assure you." His clean-shaven face grimaced uneasily. "Much nearer to us than that." Vance Norris moved angrily. He was comparatively short in the gathering of big men, some 5'8", and his stocky, powerful build tended to make him seem shorter. His black hair was crisp and hard, like short steel wires, and his eyes were the gray of fractured steel. If McCready was a man of bronze, Norris was all steel. His movements, his thought, his whole bearing had the quick, hard impulse of a steel spring. His nerves were steel, hard, quick-acting, swift, corroding. He was decided on his point now, and he lashed out in a defense with a characteristic quick, clipped flow of words. "Different chemistry be damned. That thing may be dead, or, by God, it may not. But I don't like it. Damn it, Blair. Let them see the foul thing and decide for themselves whether they want that thing thawed out in this camp. Thawed out, by the way. That's got to be thawed out in one of the shacks tonight if it's thawed out. Somebody who's watchman tonight. Magnetic? Oh, Conant. Cosmic rays tonight. Well, you get to sit up with that 20-million-year-old mummy of his. Unwrap it, Blair. How the hell can they tell us what they're buying if they can't see it? It may have a different chemistry. I don't know what else it has, but I know it has something I don't want. If you can judge by the look on its face, it isn't human. So maybe you can't. It was annoyed when it froze. Annoyed, in fact, is just about as close an approximation of the way it felt as crazy, mad, insane hatred. Neither one touches the subject. How the hell can these birds tell what they are voting on? They haven't seen those 3 red eyes and the blue hair like crawling worms. Crawling! Damn it, it's crawling there in the ice right now! Nothing Earth has ever spawned had the unutterable sublimation of devastating wrath that thing let loose in its face when it looked around this frozen desolation 20 million years ago. Mad. It was mad clear through. Searing, blisteringly mad. Hell, I've had bad dreams ever since I looked at those 3 red eyes. Nightmares. Dreaming the thing thawed out and came to life. That it wasn't dead or even wholly unconscious all those 20 million years ago, but just slowed, waiting. You'll dream too while that damn thing that Earth couldn't own is dripping in the Cosmos house tonight. And Conant, Norris whipped towards the cosmic ray specialist, won't you have fun sitting up all night in the quiet? Wind whining above and that thing dripping. He stopped for a moment and looked around. I know, that's not science, but it's psychology. You'll have nightmares for a year to come. Every night since I looked at that thing, I've had them. That's why I hate it. Sure I do. And don't want it around. Put it back where it came from, or so help me. And let it freeze for another 20 million years. And I had some swell nightmares. That it wasn't made like we are, which is obvious, but of a different kind of flesh that it can really control, that it can change its shape and look like a man and wait to kill and eat. That's not a logical argument. I know it isn't. The thing isn't Earth logic anyway. Maybe it has an alien body chemistry, and maybe its bugs do have a different body chemistry. A germ might not stand that, but Blair and Cooper, how about a virus? That's just an enzyme molecule, you've said. That wouldn't need anything but a protein molecule of anybody to work on. And how are you so sure that of the million varieties of microscopic life it may have, none of them are dangerous? How about diseases like hydrophobia, rabies? That attacks any warm-blooded creature, whatever its body chemistry may be. And parrot fever? Have you a body like a parrot, Blair? And plain rot gangrene necrosis, do you want? That isn't choosy about body chemistry. Blair looked up from his puttering long enough to meet Norris's angry gray eyes for an instant. So far, the only thing you have said this thing gave off that was catching was dreams. I'll go so far as to admit that. An impish, slightly malignant grin crossed the little man's seamed face. I had some too. So, it's dream infectious. No doubt an exceedingly dangerous malady. So far as your other things go, you have a bad mistaken idea about viruses. In the first place, nobody has shown that the enzyme molecule theory, and that alone explains them. And in the second place, when you catch tobacco mosaic or wheat rust, let me know. A wheat plant is a lot nearer your body chemistry than this otherworld creature is. And your rabies is limited, strictly limited. You can't get it from, nor give it to, a wheat plant or a fish, which is a collateral descendant of a common ancestor of yours. Which this, Norris, is not. Blair nodded pleasantly towards the tarpaulin bulk on the table. Well, thaw that damn thing in a tub of formalin if you must thaw it. I've suggested that. And I've said there'd be no sense in it. You can't compromise. Why did you and Commander Gary come down here to study magnetism? Why weren't you content to stay at home? There's magnetic force enough in New York. I could no more study the life of this thing once had from a formalin pickled sample than you could get the information you wanted back in New York. And if this one is so treated, never in all time to come can there be a duplicate. The race came from must have passed away in the 20 million years it lay frozen, so that even if it came from Mars, then we'd never find its like. And the ship is gone. There's only one way to do this, and that's the best possible way. It must be thawed slowly, carefully, and not in formalin. Commander Gary stood forward again, and Norris stepped back, muttering angrily. I think Blair is right. Gentlemen, what do you say? Conant grunted. That sounds right to us, I think. Only perhaps he ought to stand watch over it while it's thawing. He grinned ruefully, brushing a stray lock of ripe cherry hair back from his forehead. Swell idea. In fact, if he sits up with his jolly little corpse. Gary smiled slightly. A general chuckle of agreement rippled over the group. I should think any ghost it may have had would have starved to death if it hung around here that long, Conant, Gary suggested. And you look capable of taking care of it. Iron Man Conant ought to be able to take out any opposing players still. Conant shook himself uneasily. I'm not worried about ghosts. Let's see that thing Eagerly, Blair was stripping back the ropes. A single throw of the tarpaulin revealed the thing. The ice had melted somewhere in the heat of the room, and it was clear and blue as thick, good glass. It shone wet and sleek under the harsh light of the unshielded globe above. The room stiffened abruptly. It was a face up there on the plain, greasy planks of the table. The broken half of the bronze ice axe was still buried in the queer skull. 3 mad, hate-filled eyes blazed up with a living fire, bright as fresh spilled blood, from a face ringed with a writhing, loathsome nest of worms. Blue, mobile worms that crawled where hair should grow. Van Wall, 6 feet and 200 pounds of ice-nerved pilot, gave a queer, strangled gasp and butted, stumbled his way out to the corridor. Half the company broke for the doors. The other half stumbled away from the table. McCready stood at one end of the table watching them, his great body planted solid on his powerful legs. Norris, from the opposite end, glowered at the thing with smoldering heat. Outside the door, Gary was talking with 6 of the men at once. Blair had a tack hammer. The ice that cased the thing slumped crisply under its steel claw as it peeled from the thing it had cased for 20,000 years. So quoth this raven. A special hello to Bear. I hope you're still out there hanging on. To everyone else, have a lovely, lovely week, my darlings. Bye-bye.